Hello, 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 and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me first remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the use and reuse of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is BIPCOT.org. We're also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. Therefore, everything said here on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion is entirely hypothetical.
We are playing Minecraft here, people.
Yeah, we're playing Among Us, and I'm pretty sure the government is the bad one.
Government looking pretty sus right now.
Pretty sus.
Pretty sus.
Oh.
It's both the red and the blue fucker that are looking pretty sus right now.
Fuck purple.
Like that meme that I shared on Hootenanny Roundup immediately before we were taken down. The
R.I.P.
outlines.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Yeah, we're finally gone. I had been saying for months, hey, I think we're the last redacted page left on Facebook, and I think we actually were. And then one day I went to log into it, and it just wasn't there anymore. They didn't tell me nothing, and then I got a 30-day ban because I was associated with pages or groups which violated community standards. So,
But
you got a 30-day because you were friends with me before they gave me a permanent ban.
I was just going to bring that up. You've been won up by Christopher here, because Christopher not only had his Instagram zucked, but he was permabanned by Facebook.
And they got my sock account too.
They got his sock account too.
How am I still there? You know what? I'm not going to jinx it. I don't want to ask.
Now that you've asked, you'll be gone tomorrow.
Probably.
A Wolf in a Sheeple's World is like 8.5 years old now, and it's still going.
I don't know how that's even possible, because Jesus. But no, I shared the meme where.
Thank goodness for Telegram.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, none of us would be staying in contact anymore. But no, the meme that I shared was the two line graphs, the very blue looking kind of sus line graph where Biden's count just suddenly vertically increases and then continues on the arc, and it's going down, and and on the right side is their outline, so it looks like they're pissing, and it says America at the bottom in purple.
Did you see that? Did you see that the one somebody did? Like they're going over the high jump, and it's like Trump clearing the high jump, and then it's like Biden going up. He's like gonna hit the bar, and all of a sudden he jumps up, and then goes over the bar.
But don't worry, kids. Your votes definitely count.
Yeah.
It definitely makes a fucking difference.
Oh.
Don't worry.
Have you guys seen any petitions or any calling from the Republicans about the Electoral College yet?
No, not the Electoral College.
The actual college, not the votes.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen anything about the Electoral College. The only thing I've seen is in regards to popular vote. Nothing in regards to Electoral College, at least directly.
Yeah, I happened to stumble into a place earlier this weekend where there may or may not have been some pissed off Trump humping Republicans there. And they were talking about how now we just need to petition the electors in the Electoral College and to vote against their popular votes in their states, and they'll reelect Trump. I promise.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah, sake. The funny thing is I actually stumbled across. Do you remember that video from JP from 2016 where he did the video where he's like, you remember now with the election coming up that your vote counts. It in fact counts just as much as the other 150 million people who also vote, which means that your voice is 1/150 millionth of a vote. And but of course, I mean it still doesn't actually, not that you actually elect anybody, because it's actually the Electoral College that votes, but your vote still matters. But and the Electoral College is also not even legally bound in most states to even vote the way that the popular vote goes. But don't worry though. But your vote still matters. And
yeah, and don't forget, we're gonna cover an article in a little bit here from Open Secrets. $14 billion, billion with a B, as in bullshit. $14 billion spent on this election season.
I have a question. How much of that 14 billion would it take to voluntarily fix, hunger in Africa? And
I think it's like $1 billion a year to end starvation in Africa.
So we could end starvation in Africa for 14 years for
one election.
For one election. Yeah, I mean, Michael Bloomberg spent $100 million campaigning in 4 states for like pro-gun control policies, and lost in all 4 states. So,
which just cracks me up.
Nobody likes you, Bloomberg. Fuck off already. How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Why don't you have a heart attack and die, and then the rest of us can be happy?
Of all the people who have caught COVID, Michael Bloomberg hasn't.
Yeah, what the hell is that? Come on, man.
Yeah.
Horse shit.
No.
Well, I mean, it's awful hard to get the commoner diseases when you're locked up in your ivory tower most of the time.
Well, you remember the episode of South Park where Cartman gets AIDS, and they go to Magic Johnson and they find out that the vaccine for AIDS is like money.
Yeah.
You just need to throw money at the problem. That's what it is. Bloomberg just has so much money that he's immune to these common peasant diseases.
Well, then we need to get him some elitist diseases like fucking cancer so he can die already.
Well, Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969.
I mean, I'm not saying that I pray at night for him to get neurological syphilis, but I am saying that would probably be a good thing.
It's always a tragedy when tyrants die of natural causes.
It's true. That is true.
Because we'd rather they died of unnatural causes. Brandenburg v. Ohio.
Hashtag be the change you wish to see.
Blood loss is a natural cause of death.
That's true. It is.
It's completely natural that if you
run out of blood, you will die.
Lose that much blood. That's unnatural.
Follow Biden's advice. Shoot him in the leg.
just inside the left leg and about 3 inches south of the groin.
Yeah.
Oh. We're so getting kicked. This is our last episode. We're getting kicked off Anchor.
Brandenburg v. Ohio, 1969.
We're not advocating that anyone should.
I need a Brandenburg v. Ohio patch.
Yeah.
We should reach out to Poppins for that. I want one to put on my hat though for when I'm out and about. Just
patch check. What do you got?
I got Black Guns Matter.
Black Guns Matter.
Mine, ironically, we didn't coordinate this, is hashtag No Lives Matter. And you got a shirt of note on. Yes, I do. Considering that we just had our latest selection, I have a T-shirt from the Thirst Mutilator, Barondo, because it has electrolytes, which are what plants crave on right now.
I got the Boogaloo Boys from Poppins patches on the mic cover, and then I got the It's Dangerous to Go Alone, Take This AK on the hat. So,
can you imagine if Link had actually been handed an AK, like at the beginning, like, and he'd just been like,
"It's
dangerous. Revolution!" Bum, 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 bum.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. You hear the Russian or the Belarusian national anthem in the background.
Yeah.
Everything turns a shade of red.
Yeah.
There's a little tank. Yeah, there's a little tank at the bottom.
Yeah, there's a whole lineup of people come out chorus singing.
You get a tank instead of a raft. Yes, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, we are that fucking old. Original Nintendo. With the gold cassette.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, like, we just had that incident, Jason, you and I earlier, because we took a quiz from Drive Tribe
God!
You identify car parts, and it judges how old you are based on that. And we both got between 51 and 80.
Yeah, we both got boomer, and none of the questions were like tough.
I know the one that I could see, like especially like Gen Zers not getting, especially if they're not into the hot rod community, is the air conditioner.
Yes, and
I could see them not
the hand choke.
Oh, and the hand choke, yeah. They might not have gotten
the pull choke. They probably wouldn't have gotten either.
I took one of those a while back, and I was in the same category as you guys, simply because I knew what the little foot dimmer switch was.
Mm-hmm.
I was surprised that one wasn't in there.
Yeah,
actually, that one wasn't part of it.
Common. The window-mounted air conditioner. That one will get people will get wrong.
Yeah, because it's if you don't know, and so the fun fact is if you don't know, it's literally a box with an air intake in the front, and it's got a vent out the side. You would fill it with actual ice,
yeah,
and then hang it on your window, and as you drove, it would force air in over the ice, which would make it cool, and then it would be blowing cool air into your car. And that was the way air conditioning worked, clear up until the late 50s, early 60s, really.
Yep. Check it out, Off the Gridders.
It works. It works, man.
So, all right, let's get into this. Let's I think our in the chat I mentioned that we were just gonna do just a couple articles, and then we were gonna get into
predictions and stuff.
Predictions and from the Harris, the Biden regime.
I really wish that my computer was working so that I could play the GUR going doom.
So, all right, let's bring up that first. Which one do we want to bring up first?
Might as well start with the most expensive.
Start with that.
The most expensive.
It's fucking so much money, guys.
I mean, wrap your head around it's what's the number? 14
billion.
14 billion with a B, as in bullshit.
Imagine that wrap your head around having that kind of money to blow.
Imagine Bloomberg spent $100 million. $100 million.
Think about what you can buy with that kind of money. Even if you lived in Southern California. Think about the kind of money you could buy with $14 billion. You'd be like upper middle class.
You get a studio in San Francisco.
Yeah, you could almost afford a large studio in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
$14 billion.
All right. It's an article from, this is opensecrets.org. We've talked about them before. I love this site. 2020 election to cost $14 billion, blowing away spending records. Total cost of the 2020 election will reach nearly an unprecedented $14 billion, making it the most expensive election in history and twice as expensive as the previous presidential election cycle.
The 2016 one, the one where Trumpy Boo first ran.
God.
Yeah. They spent twice as much money. Or twice, sorry, not they spent twice as much, but twice as much money was spent on the 2020 selection cycle as opposed to the 2016 selection cycle.
That's pretty easy to believe if you watched any TV or listened to radio in the past 6 months, because holy
or just
Christ.
tried to watch anything on YouTube. Mother of God.
Yeah. That's according to an estimate from the Center for Responsive Politics. The center previously estimated the election would see nearly $11 million in total spending, but the extraordinary influx of political donations in the final months, driven by the Supreme Court battle and closely watched races for the White House and Senate, pushed total spending past $11 billion figure within weeks to go before the election day. Even amid a pandemic, everyone is giving more in 2020, from ordinary individuals making small donations to billionaires cutting 8-figure checks to super PACs. Women are smashing donation records, and Americans are increasingly donating to candidates who aren't running for offices in their state.
I'm looking at this chart, this graph that they have on this article, and I'm seeing 2016 presidential election spending just on the presidential race was roughly $2.5 billion. Presidential election spending in 2020 just looking at this graph, rough figure looks like $6.75 billion dollars for with a B for
a position that makes $400,000 a year.
Yes.
So anyone else like getting the producers vibes here, where like you should just run and just not actually win and then pocket everything and be like, oh, we just brought in more money than we needed, bye, and pull a Bernie Sanders, and just run and be like, I think I'm gonna buy a fourth house.
Yeah.
And
quote,
and then still campaign as a socialist.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am totally for you, comrade, as you drive away.
Equality.
See, my Ferrari is red.
We must tax the billionaires. Not the millionaires anymore, but the billionaires.
Because he's a millionaire.
I love when
he's a millionaire now.
Like the millionaires, yeah, and then he became a millionaire, and all of a sudden he was like the billionaires, and it's like,
quote, donors poured record amounts of money into the 2018 midterms in 2020. Appears to be a continuation of that trend, but magnified, said Sheila Krumholtz, executive director of the Center for Responsive Politics. Quote, 10 years ago, a billion-dollar presidential candidate would have been difficult to imagine. This cycle we will likely see too. The 2020 election is more than twice as expensive as the runner-up, the 2016 election. In fact, this year's election will see more spending than the previous 2 election cycles combined.
Jesus.
The massive numbers are headlined by unprecedented spending in the presidential contest, which expected to see $6.6 billion in total spending alone. That's up from around $2.4 billion in the 2016 race.
And let's be honest here. Were there any undecideds for this election? I mean, actually any undecideds? Anybody who was going to be influenced by any of this?
I spoke to exactly 2 people who were hemming and hawing as to whether or not they wanted to vote for Cheeto or Dementia Man.
Yeah.
Democratic and in the end, both of them voted for Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden will be the first candidate in history to raise $1 billion from donors. His campaign brought in a record-breaking $938 million through October 14th, riding Democrats' enthusiasm to defeat Trump. President Trump raised $596 million, which would be a strong fundraising effort if it not for Biden's immense haul.
I mean, I'm kind of feeling a little like looking at Biden doing that. Like, isn't like the Democrats' whole spiel that they're for they're the class of the working man and the downtrodden and the poor, and $1 billion.
Yeah.
I just feel like maybe there's a hole here.
I find it interesting. I probably jumped ahead of you here, Jason. I'm looking at the next graph in the story. It says Democrats dominate election spending. Democrat candidates and groups have spent $6.9 billion compared to $3.8 billion for Republicans. Democrats' spending falls to $5.5 billion when excluding spending by billionaire presidential candidates Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer.
Right there. That's what I'm talking about. Right there.
But your vote totally counts when compared to $1 million or $1 billion for one candidate.
How did people... I honestly, I know that at one point in my life, I did vote once in my life in a presidential election.
2012, I voted for Ron Paul.
I voted for George W. Bush. But
paycheck.
Again, at the time, I had incentive.
He was good to the military.
Exactly. At the time, I had incentive. But I did vote for George W. Bush to get reelected, and that was the only time. But I've been an anarchist for so long now. What do you think you're achieving?
And of the anarchists assembled here, I would be the most fresh. Coming out of high school, my first presidential election was Bush's re-election campaign, when I unfortunately, Andrew, voted against you.
Why do you hate the troops, Christopher?
Yeah, why do you hate so much?
I was one.
Why did you hate
shove that yellow ribbon up your ass, son.
And then in 2008, I unfortunately voted for Obama.
Okay, Hanoi Jane.
Right. And then, but then in 2012, I voted for Ron Paul. And then
I was already an anarchist. Well, heading anarchist by then. I was very definitely a libertarian, but I was also a libertarian.
I was very much so in the libertarian at that point. I went from conservative Republican to libertarian at the midterms.
Yeah, about 2009, 2010, I was associated with some groups here in California, and I was leaning libertarian at the time. And then once I stopped associating with that group, I became libertarian right away. And 2012 is when I created my page, Wolf in the Sheeple's World, and voted Ron Paul. And I remember arguing with anarchists and libertarians and Republicans and Democrats that whole time, and I'm just like, you guys are insane. Like, I thought anarchists were insane.
For letting go of that. I mean, even and now that I think about it, I mean, I was a libertarian, but I guess because I did, when I finally turned anarchist was the midterms the second time around with Obama, when I was getting involved in politics and starting to, look at possibly running and for state senate and everything else. And then that whole fiasco, which I talk about on Nick's podcast, well, his old one, the Enemy of the State Sting Podstash. That's when that happened. And when I became an anarchist. But now, I mean, having been an anarchist for so long, I look at the amount of money being spent and all these people who lobbied so hard, and what better things could your efforts and your money and everything have gone into? $14 billion. Think about the kind of change that could cause if that was dumped into things like social programs where you're like, you know what, I'm going to voluntarily contribute towards, ending homelessness, or I'm going to voluntarily contribute towards feeding the homeless at the very least. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to, put money into private education. And
no, instead they spent it on supporting the guy that wrote the crime bill that sends minorities to jail for having a plant in their house, and the lady that keeps them in jail even though they're fucking innocent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're celebrating.
And then they stand around,
tears in their eyes. Do you know how many tweets I saw about these women going, I have tears in my eyes as Kamala Harris talks about, oh, finally, ladies, finally. And like,
hey, I just say, female vice president. We also had a female candidate running for president, but y'all didn't support her, did you?
Nope. Instead, you supported the corrupt cop.
God, I love the meme. The memes are going to be so fucking fire for the next couple of years. And then once Joe dies and Camilla takes over, the memes are going to get even better.
We're going to get into that in a little bit when we start talking about predictions.
The worse it gets, the better the memes are.
I was going to say, you think it's going to be a couple of years? Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking like
when a president-elect dies before they're inaugurated.
I did see that article. I did see the tweet or the RT article about that. Yeah.
But what I find funny is that there's actual lines right now in Vegas. There's an over/under on how long Joe Biden survives.
I have to look that up.
I don't even know where I'd bet on that, to be honest with you. Like, that's a tough one.
I saw 3 different lines. I saw one that said he wouldn't make it to inauguration. I saw one that said he wouldn't make it to May. And then I saw another one that said he wouldn't make it through 2 years.
I think the 2 years would be the direction I'd go. I don't know. We'll see.
I would, well, considering Pelosi and them had already talked about using the 25th Amendment to oust a sitting president before the election happened, I would be willing to bet that sometime around Inauguration Day, maybe shortly thereafter, there'll be an anonymous leak of information saying that Joe Biden does in fact have dementia. And then they'll use the 25th Amendment to oust him and to install who they really want, which is fucking corrupt cop Harris.
Kamala Harris.
But that would be my bet, is they would wait until after inauguration just so Joe gets his fancy painting. And then use the 25th to kick him out and put Harris in.
Do you think he's gonna have like a little girl whose hair he's sniffing in his painting? There's just gonna be a picture of him going.
He might not have that on his actual presidential portrait, but I guarantee you somebody's going to make one.
That is absolutely getting mean.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the article. Much of Biden's campaign cash came in late as he broke single-month fundraising records in September and October. The same can be said for Democratic candidates running for Senate in South Carolina, Maine, and Arizona, who now hold the top 3 spots for the best fundraising quarters ever.
I think it says a lot about the American political process that in the last moments, people are like, oh shit, we need to throw more money at it.
They bring up Citizens United. Spending by deep pocket national groups is also driving the total cost of election higher. In the month of October alone, outside spending by super PACs and other big money groups totaled nearly $1.2 billion. These groups are spending far more to boost Biden than to help Trump, further aiding the Democrat cash flush campaign. Quote, when Citizens United was decided 10 years ago, conservatives were the quickest to jump on the newly permissible outside groups as a way to facilitate huge donations, says Sarah Beiner, research director at the Center for Responsive Politics. Quote, now liberal groups have more than made up for the difference and are taking advantage of every opportunity to get their message out.
Oh yeah, I mean you can hear, if you go back and you listen to political ads. I don't know why you want to do that to yourself, but if at some point you decide you hate your life that much, and you want to do that, if you listen to pre-Citizens United, post-Citizens United, boy, all of a sudden it's just this explosion in post-Citizens United of this. This political message is not authorized by any candidate or candidate's campaign.
Yep. All right. Here's a couple of paragraphs. There's going to be a number in here, and you guys are going to fucking shit. But it's even more, or even when excluding the money spent by billionaire presidential candidates Michael Bloomberg and Tom Steyer, Democratic candidates and groups have spent $5.5 billion compared to Republicans' $3.8 billion. Democrats have never had a financial advantage this large. Both parties raised more than ever from small donors, but Democrats came out on top. Democrats have raised nearly $1.7 billion from bite-sized donors compared to $1 billion for Republicans. Overall, small donors account for 22% of the money raised in 2020 cycle, a high watermark. These individual donors giving $200 or less only accounted for 15% of money raised in the 2016 election.
But 22%, that's it. 22%, less than a quarter of it.
Yeah, less than a quarter of it was grassroots. But they raised $1.7 billion from people donating $200 or less.
Gee, that's still insane.
But who would build the roads? I don't know. People who can collectively donate over $1 billion to meaningless bullshit.
Right.
They can probably afford to pool their money together. Oh, but how would you convince people to pool their money? Obviously, this is a demonstration.
Or my personal favorite.
$1.7 billion divided by 200 is 8.5 million people. So 8.5 million people donating $200 equals 1.7 billion.
1.7 billion. How many low-income families that can't afford their medical bills could have, gotten the care that they needed by voluntarily pooling? Let's just lump it all together. 2.7 billion.
Yeah.
$2.7 billion.
How many low-income people could have had their medical debts wiped out and received treatments that they needed for $2.7 billion?
2.7 billion divided by 200 is 13.5 million people.
Yeah, how many small business owners that were hit hard by the government restrictions in the name of COVID could have had their businesses saved
with that money?
How many homeless shelters and housing for the homeless could be created? How many good things could you have done with all of that money?
Instead of pissing it away into a selection process who is going to be your dear leader?
How many teachers, firefighters, nurses?
Yeah, the majority of firefighting in the United States is done by volunteers, unpaid volunteers who depend on community donations for all their equipment. Imagine $2.7 billion going to all these volunteer fire departments to get them new engines and better training and new equipment.
Just for one, we'll take one. $200. $200. You know how many school supplies $200 will buy?
Oh yeah.
How many socks? How many lunches it'll buy for the homeless?
How many winter coats from Walmart can you buy for homeless kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went down to El Salvador, right, to take a bunch of school supplies to private rural schools out there, because there's no middle class in El Salvador. There's either the very, very rich or the very, very poor, and all the rural stuff is very, very poor. And so we would take the school that I went to would take school supplies down there annually, and just a huge amount of supplies. We go down there and stuff, and we each only raised about $200 for school supplies. There between 5 of us, so about $1,000, and that supplied 14 schools worth of kids with all the supplies they would need for the next entire school year.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I mean, it's simple mathematics, and you look at it and you look at a cost benefit and you go, well, clearly if I had given all of this money to the causes that I claim, especially in the case of the Democrats, the causes that I claim to care so much about, but I can't be bothered to donate a dime of my own money to them. But I will just take that $200 and set fire to it and then put it out with some piss in my front fucking yard.
I wonder how much the NRA brought in this cycle. That's an almost disgusting number too.
Actually, I did see something where they did bring in a bunch, but at the same time, other organizations,
FPC,
made a huge gain.
I know the FPC said they brought a lot. Yeah,
FPC and GOA.
Yeah,
GOA FPC is still getting tons because they're gearing up to do a bunch of legal fights against everything that Biden wants to do.
Yep, they're racing to get that shit to the Supreme Court.
Yep.
By the way, my FPC membership stuff is coming soon.
I still need to sign up.
Yeah, you do. It's $25 and you get entered into a drawing for a free gun.
Yeah, I'm in California. I couldn't win it anyway.
You can still win it. You just have to have a 10-round limiter on the mag.
Or you could just have Andrew and I store it until you get out of there.
Yeah.
We'll hang on to it for you.
We'll hang on to it for you.
Put it at the bottom of a lake for me.
All right. You got it.
The pandemic forced candidates to forego in-person fundraisers with wealthy donors. Campaigns have increasingly relied on virtual fundraising using text and emails. I know, I got a fucking shitload of them.
How did everybody else get? I didn't get a single one. Not a single political text.
I got one literally every single day, sometimes twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't get a single political text.
Most of mine came from Lord Dampnut and his side of things. I did get one from a Joe Biden campaign person, and when I responded to that the way I responded to it, I never heard from that campaign again.
The funny thing is, I got a ton of emails. I got a ridiculous number of emails from the Republican Party, even though I'm not a registered member and have never been. I got a ton of those, but I didn't get a single text message, not a single phone call, nothing.
Yeah. Campaigns increasingly relied on virtual fundraising using text and emails, a strategy that works better when Americans are more engaged in politics. The first had to build a list of supporters to solicit donations from an area where online ads on Facebook and Google proved to be immensely successful. Political groups have spent over $1 billion this year to advertise on these platforms, including the Open Secrets online ads database. They spent $1 billion on Facebook and Google to tell you to go vote for some.
To tell you to go pick their chosen master.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm master greater than his master.
Democrats are also raising more in large part because women are giving more. More than 1.5 million women have donated to federal committees, and accounting for 44% of all donors. That's up 37% from 2016. In the 2020 election, women have given $2.5 billion through mid-October, up from $1.3 billion through the entire 2016 election. According to the center's research, women are more likely to be Democratic donors. In the 2020 election, women giving out $200 have donated $1.3 billion to Democrats and roughly $570 million to Republicans. Oh. And then it gets on to some specifics in South Carolina and Florida, and it's a really long article. I love what Open Secret says. I'm not going to read this whole article. It's just too much.
I just want to reiterate here. There is a metric ton of money.
Metric shit ton
of money. Thank you for the correction.
It's a scientific term. We have to get it right.
Being just pissed all over everything. Over who is going to run your life. What color the boot on your throat is going to fucking be.
Yeah. It's like
when
my,
you
my
could
tweet
easily
that I did earlier.
We were talking, I don't remember if that was early in the show or if it was in the pre-show, but $14 billion was spent on this, about $1 billion annually to cure hunger in starving areas of Africa. So for 14 years, the amount of money pissed away this year or on this fucking selection cycle could have fed people and possibly induce some manner of prosperity because people won't be freaking the fuck out over whether or not they'll be able to eat for the next 14 years of their lives.
Think of how many homeless people you could house. The in Madison, when they built their tiny home village for the homeless, the average cost of one of those tiny homes, because it was all volunteer labor, the average cost was like $400 and something.
Yep.
Per tiny house. So think about how many tiny homes to get homeless families in particular off the streets and into some sort of a safe environment where they can maybe rebuild their lives. Mm-hmm. Think of how many people you could have helped with that. Think about how many of them would suddenly be able to no longer be homeless and break that endless cycle and be able to fix things with not even, I mean, you could do that for a quarter of what was spent on this election across the entire United States. All of it.
How much was the tiny home? $475 roughly?
It was I know it was under 500.
Let's say 500 even. 28 million tiny homes with volunteer labor could be built for $14 billion.
Think about the impact that would make.
That would create a surplus of tiny homes for homeless people.
You could literally build a fleet of robots to clean human shit off the street in San Francisco.
Ouch.
Jason feels personally attacked.
But think of how many needle collection points that could create in San Francisco.
Hell, you could create a few extra ones in La Crosse.
Yeah, Jesus. It boggles the amount of good you could do with that kind of money just blows my mind. If you had
people
put it
just
something,
piss it away.
Yeah. They just went, here, dear leader, let me throw money at you.
Right.
Please
and anything that
when you seize power.
And anything that goes unspent, you can't tell me that doesn't somehow, some way end up in the personal pockets of these people.
Well, we know it does. Look at Bernie Sanders.
Right. But I mean, they say, legally, like the fucking law means shit. It's not supposed, or it's supposed to stay in the campaign fund for future elections or something like that, or be surrendered to the committee, the national committee. It doesn't.
Well, if you have $14 billion, you get to play by entirely different rules than the average person. Right. Laws no longer exist when you have that kind of money.
Freaking fines are nothing but taxes for doing things fees. They're just fees for breaking victimless laws.
Well, that guy that parked illegally, and I'm like, hey, it's a $200 fine to park here. Remember that story? The guy who parks illegally. No, it's going to be $200. It's a $200 fine to park here. Oh no, that just means it cost me $200 to park here.
Yeah.
That is the mentality of people that are that kind of rich, and you're just taking this money and shoving it into their pockets and going, please, dear leader, when you lead the party and the great people's revolution occurs, please remember me. And that's all you're doing. You know, the funny thing is...
Spoiler, they won't remember you.
Yeah, the funny thing is what's going to happen is all these people who are currently, I'm literally in tears on Twitter over Biden winning and Trump losing, are about to discover real fucking fast the true nature of Joe Biden, assuming he survives long enough. Because remember, Biden is the guy who at the beginning of his career campaigned and won on I oppose the repeal of Jim Crow and I oppose the integration of schools. He's the one who wrote the 94 Omnibus Crime Bill. He's the one who talked about corn pop. All right? This is the guy.
He's the one that his fucking VP pick tore him apart on the debate stage because he opposed busing.
Okay. Doing quick math while you guys are talking, the total votes listed on Google for Trump, Biden, Joe, whoever the other guy is and the other guy is, comes to like 148,786,000. 14 billion divided by 148,786,000 and change comes out to about $94.10 per vote.
Almost $100 per vote.
Yeah, $95 per vote. Yeah.
Like, just, you want to talk about contributing to the perpetuation of the cycle of your own oppression? That right there is it on like turn to 11. Right? Yeah. That is I want to be oppressed harder daddy on steroids. Mm-hmm. You spent $100 in order to pick the guy that you were just going to pick anyway.
Yeah. And you pick to oppress your neighbor.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the thing is like, I've been seeing posts like, oh, it's the end of racism. And I'm like, do you know Joe Biden's fucking history? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to argue that Trump isn't a racist piece of shit too, but he's not the kind of institutionalized racist, long-term racist piece of shit that Joe Biden is.
I actually got into that with someone earlier about Trump being a racist. I'm anti-Trump, all right? Don't get me wrong. I can't fucking stand Trump. And the only thing that I could think of that Trump could actually be, like, even remotely considered racist is his border policy. And even
when you really look at it, before 2016, where he decided to run against Hillary Rotten Clinton, he was winning awards from prominent members of the black community. There are pictures all across for years, decades of him hanging out with the likes of Jesse Jackson and
Al Sharpton
and getting awards, and Al Sharpton and getting awards.
There's a racist son of a bitch.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, he's getting awards from these people for helping the black community with his money. And then all of a sudden he decides to run against the anointed queen. And orange man, giant racist.
Yeah.
What?
Well, exactly. Well, remember that people accused Ron Paul of being racist, and he, during the civil rights era, ran a hospital that was like the only free hospital that was willing to treat people of color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they accused him of being racist too. And like, I loved his response though on Twitter when somebody accused him of that. It was just a post, no words, just that photo of the news article talking about how this local doctor, agrees to treat colors for free, blah, blah, blah. And like, it was just that. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and let my actions speak for themselves.
Yep. And, and that comes back to, we're talking, I mean, granted, neither Biden nor Trump have a great content of character, period. But it's all about, think back to Martin Luther King. Judge a man not by the color of his skin, by the content of his character. Well, if you're judging people by the content of their character, why are we giving them fucking control of the country?
Because those people control a 13-year, 15,000-hour multi-generational indoctrination program.
I know, but it's that's my point. Is everybody, they're so willing to give control of their lives to these other people that are just garbage human beings.
Well,
every last one of them.
Here's the thing. There's a quote from Andrew Breitbart, right? But you guys know Breitbart.com, like before it turned into a neocon bootlicking place.
Well, he was still alive.
Yeah. Well, he was still alive. Right. It was a really good site, and it had this quote where he said, "Politics is downstream of culture." And that's the issue that we have now is they being the collectivists, the cultural Marxists, the liberals, big government supporters, et cetera, they control the culture in this country. They control it through the education, through the entertainment. It's a multi-generational program at this point. And when you can control the culture, you can control the way people think. You can control the politics. You can control what they support. You can control the entire Overton window, and that's the issue that we're running into right now, and not right now, but have been running into.
Andrew, that was way too trippy.
Yeah, that was kind of a.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my computer is still dead.
Andrew turned his phone and it turned the screen, and we went for a ride.
It's a good thing I'm not a few more beers into this. It would have been really good.
Yes. Whoa. No.
Good thing that wasn't worse than cannabis I took.
Was it Himmler or was it Bormann? One of them that was talking about schooling. And
John Taylor Gatto? I have no idea.
Oh God, it was one of the two Nazis.
There's a few.
There's a lot of them.
There's a few, but while Andrew looks that up, I'll go back into that. Yeah, but politics is downstream of culture, and when you can control or influence how people think through their information collectors, right, through education, through the influencers. Look at the influencers. Look at the celebrities that were out there this year, right? Through social media and all that indoctrination, like you have obvious conservative censorship on Twitter and Facebook and all these other sites, and that helps change the Overton window. And when you can control the Overton window, you can control the culture. You control the politics.
It's Adolf Hitler is in a speech from June of 1933. He said, "If the older generation cannot get accustomed to us, we shall take their children away from them and rear them as needful to the fatherland."
Yep.
That was what I was looking for. So
Goebbels was a smart man.
That was actually Hitler that said that.
Goebbels was his speechwriter.
Yeah, Goebbels wrote a lot of his speeches and things, and I couldn't remember if it was Himmler or Goebbels or Bormann or who it was that actually said, but apparently Hitler said at least one that I found quickly, which is exactly what we're seeing. It's that idea that, well, the older generations aren't going to acquiesce to us. So
yeah, there's the adage about you become more conservative as you get older. No, bro. You guys were just indoctrinated differently.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like the hyper America first policy and everything else, and don't forget, people pretend that there's such a difference between Democrats and Republicans, but if you look historically at what presidents that have been Republicans and have been Democrats have done, if you didn't know who had done it and you just had the general events, you would assume you could guess that it was either one.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a true 50-50 chance. Like,
when's the last time we had a true anti-war leftist president?
Have we ever had a truly anti-war leftist president?
Not that I can recall.
Ever?
No.
I mean,
No.
I don't think so. I mean, even Kennedy, that was billed as so progressive, and he's the one who got us into Vietnam. So
we are opposed around the world.
But now let's turn that on its head. When was the last time we had a true anti-war right-leaning president?
Those exist. That's a thing.
Coolidge?
I was gonna say Calvin Coolidge would be about the only one.
You're going back a long ways there.
A century at this point.
Yeah. I mean, the guy who famously said that I hope that my legacy as president will be that I in general left everybody alone.
Right. If we could get a president like that today, I might actually be inclined to go back out and vote again.
Yeah, that'll never happen though. That'll never happen because the ones who pull in $14 billion,
right,
are the pro-war, pro-American exceptionalism, pro military-industrial complex. Like, again, I mean, don't forget that the military-industrial complex straight up said leading up to the election, collectively, well, we're not worried about who wins the election because we're still going to get paid.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Randolph Bourne, 1918, he wrote an essay called "War is the Health of the State." He said, "War is the health of the state. It automatically sets in motion throughout society those irresistible forces for uniformity, for passionate cooperation with the government and coercing the obedient, the minority groups, the individuals that lack the larger herd sense. The machinery of government sets and enforces drastic penalties. The minorities are either intimidated into silence or brought slowly around by a subtle process of persuasion, which may seem to them to really convert them. Of course, the ideal of perfect loyalty, perfect uniformity is never obtained."
Look at the Celts, one of my favorite cultures, because they're my ancestry completely. But look at the Celts and the fact that
I'll throw a link to that in the description, you guys.
The Celts, they were warring tribes who were all very independent and regarded we assume, based on the writings of the people who fought them, very much about their independence and their freedom and everything else. Mm-hmm. But they were very independent of each other. They're all these independent groups with no leaders and everything, unless they had a common enemy to fight.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And then they united. The most diverse and unwilling to cooperate with each other people in the history of planet Earth, the Celts, would still join together and follow like Vercingetorix, or they'd follow Boudica, they'd follow Bren, because they had a common enemy to fight, and the guy's going, well, I will lead you to victory over these people, or woman in the case of Boudica. And this is demonstrative of a trend throughout history of humanity, that even when we're super divided, you give us a single enemy to hate more than we hate our neighbor, and all of a sudden, now we will work.
Wasn't that the entire point of Hadrian's Wall?
Well, Hadrian's Wall was to try and keep the Picts out, who were Irish colonists that had moved from Ireland into Scotland.
Okay.
It didn't work. And at one point, the Picts actually held the entire wall instead of the Romans for a little while.
I was on the wrong island.
Yeah, it didn't really work out too well. But yes, the point was that it was this common enemy, and it was to keep them out. And I mean, you see that again and again and again with history, where look at when Hitler took control of Germany. Oh well, we need common enemies. So the common enemies are the Jews and the Untermensch. Right, the common enemies. When the Soviets take over Russia, oh well, the common enemy is the bourgeoisie. It's the ruling class. They're the common enemy. They're the ones that we should all fight. You see it again and again and again and again. That is how tyrants gain as much power as they do, is just getting everybody to look at the xenophobia. Look at that other guy, and we need to fight that guy.
Yeah, it's the same argument with capitalism versus socialism right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, that capitalism is the enemy. That's who we need to fight.
Capitalism is the enemy. Spends $14 billion on an election.
$14 billion voluntarily contributed. Capitalism.
Oh, by the way, hey, if any of you out there who are listening or watching this happen to, accidentally stumble into some common sense, remember, without capitalism, you wouldn't have the money to piss $14 billion away on a fucking election.
Hey, anybody want to send me like 1% of that? I'll stop podcasting. I'll be quiet.
Dude, you can buy my silence for the low price of $8,000 a month.
Yep.
I tried to sell my vote for Bitcoin. Nobody bought it.
5 Bitcoin. Send me 5 Bitcoin monthly, and I will support every policy that you want. I am a sellout. That'll work for me.
5 Bitcoin right now is like over $70,000.
Per month.
Per month,
but it's only 5. It's only 5.
Send me that $1 billion that the government just confiscated.
Yeah, send me that $1 billion in Bitcoin, and I will stop talking completely. My silence can in fact be bought, at least temporarily.
Bitcoin's at 15,428 right now.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I have that 1 Bitcoin stashed away somewhere.
Every time I hear that, though, my heart breaks for that dude back in the day who spent 10,000 Bitcoin to buy a pizza.
Somebody
I wonder what
somebody had
right
to be
now.
the first one. Somebody had to be the first one.
I know, but god damn it. Like, of all the things to be the first one to do, like, hey, I'm the first one who completely blew what would potentially be a multi-billion-dollar investment.
Well, yeah, the $1 billion that the government just confiscated was like 66,000 coins or something like that.
Yeah. So, Jesus.
Actually, if a person were to free Ross Ulbricht, I would vote for them for re-election.
Yeah, just immediately. Like, nah, he gets a full pardon. Bye. You're free.
Those are my two conditions: either a $10,000 in Bitcoin, or sitting president frees Ross Ulbricht. Then you can have my vote.
And Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange.
Yes. It would take all 3 for me to go back into a voting booth.
Yeah, and then I would vote. I'd be
I'm
like,
a whore.
Right,
I'm a whore. I'm okay.
I have some morals occasionally.
Right?
I am morally flexible, but
you know how much ammo? You know how much ammo $10,000 would buy? That's like
in today's market.
That's like 17 9mm right now.
Yeah, I know.
I was gonna say in today's market, that's like maybe a magazine's worth. You might get 2 if you find the right deal, but
I have that amount of money sitting in ammo right now.
Buy enough ammo for my 2 world wars.
Well, shit, if that's the case, I am a whore. Who wants it?
All right, let's get into this next one. Biden plans immediate flurry of executive orders to reverse Trump policies.
Gosh, I am just shocked.
I'm
just
totally
absolutely.
I really hope that he does this, and then like the courts call him out, and then there's this, and it becomes like a do nothing presidency until he dies and Kamala Harris takes over.
Honestly, if everything shakes out the way that they think it's going to,
all right,
it's going to be mostly a do nothing presidency anyway, because he's going to have divided Congress.
Right. Yeah.
Plus the Supreme Court's against him.
All right. Yes or no question. Does Joe survive the 4 years?
No.
Nope.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, right. I think that's a pretty unanimous. This panel has spoken. There is no way. There is no way that
mark it down, Vegas.
I'm fairly certain that Joe should hire a food taster at this point.
You don't even need a food taster.
CIA has the heart attack guns, man.
Are you kidding me? They can just put the man on a roller coaster, and not even a big roller coaster. One of those little dragon roller coasters they have at the fairs.
I got this image of Camellia Anna Nicoling Joe Biden.
Why would you think about that?
She's well known for that in California.
God damn it! Now it's in my head. No!
Well, how the hell do you think she got the VP nomination? I mean, come on.
Sniff me, Joe. Sniff me.
No. It's so wrong.
Why would you do that?
I love your hairy legs, Joe.
Oh man, Derek could be snorting her ass off right now.
Oh, it's so wrong.
If you don't sniff me, Joe, you ain't black. I apologize to all 7 of our listeners.
They just stopped listening right now.
Everyone's like, and no, I'm gonna go ahead and
subscribe. I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe Biden plans immediate flurry of executive orders to reverse Trump policies. President-elect Joe Biden is planning to quickly sign a series of executive orders after being sworn into office on January 20th, immediately forecasting that the country's politics have shifted and that his presidency will be guided by radically different priorities.
It's going to be guided by the exact same priorities
as
the last one. Me.
Yeah, exactly.
He will rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, according to those close to his campaign, and comments he has made in the recent months, and he will reverse President Trump's withdrawal from the World Health Organization. He will repeal the ban on almost all travel from some Muslim-majority countries and reinstate the program allowing Dreamers who were brought to the United States illegally as children to remain in the country, according to the people familiar with the plans.
Wait. Read the sentence about the Muslim travel ban again.
He will repeal the ban on almost all travel from some Muslim-majority countries.
What does that mean?
It means he will repeal the ban on almost all travel from some Muslim-majority countries.
From some Muslim-majority countries.
Well, Trump's travel ban didn't ban travel from all Muslim-majority countries, just a select few.
Just for some. And of course, you know they're not going to lift the ban on Iran because they got to have the boogeyman out there.
No, I would be surprised if Joe didn't do that.
Oh, he's a fucking war hawk too. He's gonna keep.
He is a war hawk too, but that would be the reason why he would do it. Get an Iranian who hates America to come to the U.S., do something stupid, and look what I get to do.
That man is currently sitting around. He's sitting around a Ouija board, channeling the spirit of John McCain right fucking now.
Oh, probably got John McCain's brain in a jar.
How you doing, John? God, it sure is hot down here.
Did anybody else just have the image of Futurama, the Hall of Heads?
Yeah, exactly.
He's got the head of John McCain he talks to all the time.
Although transition of powers can always be, I'm on a roll tonight. Although transitions of power can always include abrupt changes, the shift from Trump to Biden, from one president who sought to undermine established norms and institutions to another who has vowed to restore an established order, will be among the most startling in American history.
Considering Joe Biden's history, an old established order phrase is one of the greatest lines I have seen in an article lately.
I have to read that paragraph again because although the transitions of power can always include abrupt changes, the shift from Trump to Biden, from one president who sought to undermine established norms and institutions to another who has vowed to restore the established order, will be among the most startling in history. The fucking Washington Post just called Joe part of the established order, which means he's just another big government white liberal.
Well, I just want to point out, Joe is definitely all about the established order. He was
absolutely.
all about the established
Absolutely.
order when he opposed the repeal of Jim Crow and said that black people shouldn't be able to eat at the same lunch counters as white people. He was all about the established order when he opposed integration of public schools and said that black kids shouldn't get to go to school with white kids because that isn't how it was done. And blacks were just somehow different than whites. And that was just the established way of things. Joe is all about the established order when he says, oh, let's create this crime bill that says that basically I get to send cops into any black man's home because he has a plant and take his stuff, whether he gets convicted or not, That is Joe being all about the established
47 years in government or something like that.
But now he's going to fix everything.
Oh, totally going to fix everything. Everything's fine now. Racism is dead.
Yeah, racism has stopped because we elected a hyper-racist fucking president.
Trump is you could almost at least make a case for Trump being a person of color, being that he is orange most of the time. But
that's
Biden is nothing but white. I mean, he just goes fucking white.
You notice too? That actually brings up an interesting. Have you not noticed that this election we didn't hear anybody on the left saying anything about not wanting old white men in charge anymore?
You know, I did notice
that. During the primaries, yes. But once Joe was established, there wasn't very many.
There wasn't any that I saw. That was all. Oh, well, we need to back Joe because he's not the Orange Fuhrer.
Well, that's
all I heard was Orange Man bad.
There were dissenting voices that were silenced by the mainstream. I saw a lot of it. I saw a lot of it on Twitter.
Yeah, because I'm just pointing out, like, I didn't see a whole lot of blue check marks or like leftist talking heads going, well, what about all these old white men? You know, we're the party against old white men. I didn't hear any of that this election because guess what? They elected an old white man.
I just hear Alyssa Milano just me. Shut the fuck up.
I'm not saying Alyssa Milano needs to be thrown into a wood chipper. What I am saying is that if she were thrown into a wood chipper, I would not cry.
No.
Biden's top advisors have spent months quietly working on how best to implement his agenda, with hundreds of transition officials preparing to get to work inside various federal agencies. They have assembled a book filled with his campaign commitments to help guide their early decisions. Biden is also planning to set up a corona task force on Monday in recognition that the global pandemic will be the primary issue that he must confront.
Last time I was in Mexico, I also set up a corona task force. Slightly different.
I was completely surrounded by coronas.
Yeah, it was the goal was to seek out and eliminate corona.
The task force
and every line within 2 miles.
Yes.
I know this guy's name, don't I? Yes, I do know him.
You're looking at the article, so one would hope.
Vivek H. Murthy?
Yes.
God, he was a Surgeon General.
He had a he was dismissed. Dismissed from his post as top doctor. Oh, he's the guy that said gun control was a health issue, was a mental health issue.
That guy, he's that guy.
Yeah,
that's that guy.
Oh, there are many names I wish to call him, but will not because YouTube will, in fact, remove this video.
Let's see.
And David Kessler.
Let's see. Oh, sorry. Okay, back to the article I was reading. Oh, come on, stupid article. Biden's planning to set up a coronavirus task force, blah, blah, blah. Task force, which could begin meeting within days, will be co-chaired by former Surgeon General Vivek H. Murthy and David Kessler, a former Food and Drug Administration commissioner.
Because we all know that the FDA has everyone's best interest at heart.
Okay, so I want to point out, so Biden is leaning on a former Surgeon General and a author, public speaker, and death and grieving expert to head up his his coronavirus task force.
That instills hope.
And he is an American. He's an American pediatrician, apparently, as well.
Oh boy, because we all know that pediatricians are never wrong, like the ones who recommend circumcision. Never wrong. Yeah. I just started a hell of a comment war somewhere.
Okay, let's see.
Suck it.
Okay, Vivek said, what I'm calling for is more common sense. We may see various issues around violence as highly politicized because of how they're covered or how they're spoken about in public settings. The problems that we have faced are not problems that one party or one sector can solve on their own, but it's going to be take a real partnership and working together across the country that will help address the great health care challenges that our country is facing. Yeah, that's what he said about gun control.
Common sense, blah blah blah. It's the same old.
Yep.
Vivek Murthy is an American physician.
Is always the same.
Pretty much. American physician and former vice admiral in the Public Health Service Commissioned Corps, who served as the 19th Surgeon General of the United States. Murthy, who founded
called vice admiral.
That's what it says.
What the hell?
Who founded the nonprofit Doctors for America in 2008, was the first Surgeon General of Indian descent, and while serving in office, was the youngest active duty flag officer in federal uniformed service. He was the Surgeon General under Barack Obama and Lord Dampnut initially.
That's right. He was. I know. Yeah. No, I remember this dude now. Okay. Yeah, he was a vice admiral. That's right.
Yes, he was. Although I gotta laugh because he was a vice admiral, but his boards are looking pretty naked.
Let's see.
Oh yeah, admirals don't generally.
He proposed attempting to cut gun control in halves by 2020 by banning assault weapons, tightening safety regulations, funding research on gun violence, and repealing laws that ban physicians from discussing gun safety with patients.
First of all, what the fuck does a doctor know about gun safety? Fuck you, you fucking Fruit Loop. Are you kidding me? And on top of that, oh God. And these are the people. See that? So it fucking begins. So it begins.
How much you want to bet Murthy and Beto turn up in the gun control commission that Biden plans to implement?
You know what's going to happen. Okay. You know what's going to happen is you're going to have David Hogg as their public face.
God. Quote, my concerns with regards to issues like gun violence have to do with my experience as a physician, seeing patients in emergency rooms who have come in with acute injuries, but also seeing many patients over the years who are dealing with spinal cord injuries, post-traumatic stress disorder, and other chronic complications from gun violence.
You know how many people I know who deal with post-traumatic stress disorder because of car accidents? How about we ban cars?
Yeah.
Is yourself included in that, Andrew?
No, it is not. But I know a lot of people who are included in that, who do have post-traumatic stress car accidents. I mean, I've been in a lot of freaking car accidents.
I know a crap ton of people who have PTSD from physical abuse from their parents when they were kids, or I have a number of friends who, unfortunately, throughout their high school years were victims of sexual assault. They still struggle with PTSD, and I've been out of high school almost 20 fucking years.
I mean, the clear answer is that we need to ban heterosexual intercourse, cars, parents, and marriage.
Yep. Right. But if we just donated more money to presidential candidates
and banned all the things,
ban all the things. Yes. Kessler, former food. Okay. There has also been a recognition of those around him that he may have to lean more on executive actions than he had hoped. He can reorient various federal agencies and regulations, and he can adopt a different posture on the world stage. But pushing major legislation through Congress could prove to be a challenge. Although the Democrats will hold a narrowed majority in the House, the final makeup of the Senate is not yet clear. They will decide on January 5th with 2 runoff elections in Georgia. Democrats would need to win both races to effectively have control of the Senate, and Vice President Kamala Harris serving as the tie-breaking vote, while Republicans would retain a narrow advantage by winning at least one.
The funny thing is that Georgia has gone back to blue.
Yes.
And he said back to blue. And a lot of that is because
I think Georgia was on the list places that Bloomberg spent all that money.
Yeah. Remember, Georgia was blue for a very, very long time during the Jim Crow era and the Civil Rights era. Mm-hmm. Georgia was very definitely blue. It was very solidly Democrat. It wasn't until after the civil rights era that Georgia started going red, and that was largely over gun rights. And the funny thing is now there's been such a giant influx of people, particularly from Florida and actually New York and Washington, D.C., into Georgia, that it's started to lean blue again.
Well, there's a lot of rural land up there, and there's people like with New York, like on the West Coast here in California, the Ritchie part of the Bay Area. People are fleeing in droves. Like there was a point in time, like in July or August, where you couldn't rent a U-Haul because they were all rented out because people were leaving the area. That also happened on the East Coast in New York and New Jersey and Atlanta, the actual Atlanta proper.
I was gonna say I know quite a few people that have fled the urban areas of the PNW, like Seattle, Portland, all of those, because of all the bullshit going on up there. I can think of at least 8 people that I know personally who fled from Oregon to Idaho.
Oh yeah.
Well, I hope they leave Oregon in Oregon.
And no. I know at least 5 of them did. Uh-oh. Did we lose Andrew?
Just video. He's fine.
Okay. I see he's unmuted too, so.
Yeah. So. But, I forgot where we were going with that.
Talking about how Biden's commission or task force people were almost certainly going to drive everything.
Well, the other thing that he wants is a national mask mandate. And there's also talk of a national quarantine order.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Unfortunately, there's nothing.
Up to this point, at the federal level, there has been nothing like that. Like all the quarantine orders and mask mandates and whatnot have been local.
That was
city, county, state. So there hasn't been any national order. Yeah,
that was Trump's line in the sand with it. Is he's like, I don't want to do this, and I don't have the authority to do this, so I'm going to leave it up to the states, but I'm going to offer them all of the support that they need. Even if you talk to Cuomo in New York and all the people that just railed against Trump throughout the early stages of it, if they asked for something, they got it. But
except for California.
Except for California.
But fuck California.
Yeah, well.
I'm changing it from the inside.
I'm just waiting for California to fall into the ocean so we don't have to deal with it anymore.
Hey, the San Andreas Fault is like 30 miles west of me. Let it roll. I'm good.
Speaking of the quote unquote pandemic and stuff and the debates, what's interesting is that a lot of people want to draw the parallels between now and 1916 and through 1918, right? Like the
Jesus Christ, Andrew, your phone's drunk.
It is. It keeps calling, man.
It's going again too.
It's like, okay. So no, they're trying to draw these parallels with those. And what's interesting is even then, yes, lots of people wore masks, right? Whether or not that mattered, who knows? Because despite all sorts of people wearing masks pretty much everywhere, like 1 in 3 households still had a family member die. During the 3 separate waves of the Spanish flu pandemic. But even during that, there was debates about mask mandates and debates about mandatory quarantines and things. And everyone came down, even as 1 in 3 households are losing a family member. All these people are dying constantly. They're still railing against it because you don't have that authority.
Yep.
But he's going to try. We all know he's going to try.
People have the right to be dumb.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying wearing a mask is dumb. I'm absolutely not saying that. It's your choice. But people have the right.
If you want to make that choice for yourself,
to make what others consider to be a bad decision.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. If you want to make that choice for yourself, I have no problem if you want to wear a mask everywhere you go. That's your choice. If you think it's going to help you, great.
That's fine.
Don't shit on me because I choose not to.
Yeah. Because remember too, that the whole thing initially was, well, masks protect you or to protect you. And then they figured out, okay, well, no, they don't at all. That's a load of horseshit. So then they were like, oh, well, masks are to protect everybody else. But as soon as they went to that tactic, now magically they go, well, keep yourself safe and wear a mask. Okay, but is it to protect me or to protect them? You're going to have to make up your fucking mind.
And then didn't the last CDC study reveal that like 7 out of 10 or something like that, people that got it were regular mask wearers?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, the ones who died were regular mask wearers.
Yep. And I'm not a an infectious agent specialist by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I did stay at a Holiday Inn once, though.
I did stay at a Holiday Inn once.
I played a lot of Plague Incorporated. I mean, I did play a lot of that.
I have played Doctor once or twice.
I have talked to a friend who happens to be an immunologist, and he took a swab of 3 different patients' masks that they wore into the hospital.
Oh, they're nasty.
And on there he found traces of C. diff. He found traces of bubonic plague bacterium. I can't remember what the hell that one was called.
Bipestis.
Yes. And he also found traces of more common, but MRSA. And you're inhaling this.
MRSA's one of those that scares me.
Oh, at least I may have gotten the plague, but at least I didn't get COVID.
And that's the thing is these patients were admitted. They were admitted for COVID. But they had these other dangerous bacterium growing inside their mask.
Gee, I can't imagine why most of the people who wear masks wound up dying.
Right?
Gosh, it's almost like if your immune system is already compromised, and then you hold this thing in front of your face so that you can inhale methicillin-resistant streptococcus and Y. pestis and into your lungs, then maybe this is going to cause a problem.
You know what the issue is? Is we just didn't give enough money to political candidates.
That's right.
If you'd only hit the $20 billion mark,
if Biden would have ran on ending COVID instead of ending racism, then we'd all be mask free right now.
He did run on ending COVID though.
By sitting in his basement every fucking day.
I know.
And calling a lid at 9 a.m. every fucking morning.
All right. Well, all right. We've already lasted longer on the subject than Biden's presidency will. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to our other favorite subject.
Boobs?
Other favorite subject.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is the U.S. already in a new civil war?
Gosh.
Before you say anything, this is an article from Vice, so it's going to be fun.
It is a remarkable article from Vice.
Oh my God, we should have brought that.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
We should have brought that other article too, the one about refusal to wear masks being toxic masculinity.
I still got time.
All right, maybe if we get through this, we'll look that one up. But it says,
yes, that's why my girlfriend refuses to wear a mask, is because she's toxically masculine.
Is the U.S. already in a new civil war? This article from Vice. It says, America's COVID-19 numbers aren't under control. In many places, they're getting worse. Large portions of the West Coast are on fire. Social media is fueling genocides, and political violence in the U.S. is increasing. People are marching in the streets aligned with 2 ideologically distinct factions. Many of them, overwhelmingly from one side, are armed, and violence and death has resulted when those 2 sides have clashed.
So throwing Molotov cocktails and burning down private businesses.
Those were protest cocktails.
Those were peaceful protest cocktails.
So
yes,
that means you weren't armed.
It was peaceful fire.
Yeah,
peaceful fire.
It was peaceful fire.
It's peaceful fire.
Not like the right-wing anger fire. No. This was peaceful fire.
There's been right
So
wing.
I'm going to go back to last week's episode. If I fill this thing about that far with some type of flammable spirit,
that is a destructive device.
No, I didn't light it.
You have to register it.
It doesn't matter. It's an 80%.
It's only 80%. It's only 80%. Therefore, it's not serialized. I can't register it. It's only a destructive device if I light it.
No, the guy was charged, and all he had it in his pocket.
See, you know what his mistake was, is that he didn't realize that he had an unregistered destructive device and immediately destroy it. And we all know that the best way to destroy it is to throw it and smash it. Yes. And that way, it is no longer a destructive device.
It has already been destructed.
Yeah, because it's destroyed, so it's not a destructive device anymore.
Self-Brandenburged. All right. The signs of a coming conflict are everywhere. Political polarization is up. Gun and ammunition sales have spiked. Killers such as Kyle Rittenhouse are being lauded by their political allies. And protests are widespread in American cities. Police kill unarmed people in the streets. The government is polarized and corrupt, and our institutions are failing. Armed militias patrol U.S. streets, and groups like the Atomwaffen Division and the Base plot to start a larger conflict. Mass shootings, sometimes ideologically motivated and other times not, often occur. Poverty and unemployment are widespread as mass evictions loom, and Congress stalls to help those in need.
Okay, hold on a second.
Often?
Hold on. Okay, first off,
this is Vice.
I know it's Vice, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to unpack something from the second sentence here. Killers such as Kyle Rittenhouse, who is being chased by a pedophile, a convicted woman beater,
in their defense, there's no way to know that in the moment.
Well, there's no way to know that in the moment, but what you do know is that you are alone. You are being chased by a violent crowd, and
you heard gunfire
with a gun. Yeah. The guy had a gun in his hand.
Yeah,
had.
And had. Well, no, he was still there.
He was still holding it. He just could. Yeah, he just lost the upper part of his arm.
Yeah, he was disarmed and armed simultaneously.
Schrodinger's arm.
Turn and draw. Turn and draw.
So I just want to lay that out. Anybody who watches the video, I don't care how problematic you believe everything is. Anybody who watches that video and puts themselves in Rittenhouse's shoes would say he was being attacked and he acted in self-defense.
Okay. Armed.
Go ahead.
Good.
Okay, then after that, I'm going to jump down to mass shootings, sometimes ideologically motivated, and other times not, occur frequently. Where?
Yeah.
Where?
Frequently?
No, the line that got me is armed militias patrol U.S. streets, and groups like Atomwaffen Division and the Base plot for larger conflict. I didn't see them marching at all. I did see the NFAC though.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's who I did see marching in an organized group. I did see them.
Keep your fucking fingers off the trigger.
Yeah, this is an important lesson from them, where training is very important. As they're talking about the militias and things, I just had to. This is the way. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just gonna go this route.
Yeah.
So that was a terrible
idea. When do we start?
Here's
the thing, right? All these people who are so horrified by this idea, these armed militias, right? Second Amendment says what?
I don't know.
You don't know what the Second Amendment says?
You're the smart people.
Chris, what does the Second Amendment say?
Don't put me on the spot.
Seriously, guys.
I know it.
I don't care. I'm an anarchist. It's words on paper.
Well, my point is that it specifically mentions a well-regulated militia being necessary
for the protection of a free state.
Yes.
The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
And they're going, oh God, there's militias wandering around.
But you got to remember, they don't care about the Constitution unless it helps them.
But no. They don't care about the Constitution at all because it does nothing but hinder them.
Yeah, it only hinders them. But what I'm saying is this is literally the concepts that this country was founded around and exists.
Oh, but remember, the founding fathers were rich white slave owners.
Well, I mean, that's accurate, yes.
For a rich white...
you should see the hate I got for that meme where I said if we could just... It was the thing from Inception, with the back and forth on the narrow eyes, where it was like, oh, if we could just get the United States government to adhere to the Constitution again, then everything would be better because then everybody would have a voice. Oh, you mean like when they wrote that only white male landowners over the age of 21 were allowed to have any voice? Narrow eyes. Read the Constitution. Know your fucking history before you start arguing. Like, are you kidding me? This country was never about equality. Ever. Never.
No.
It has never been about equality. It has never been about equal voices. It has never been about equal control. Never, ever, ever. It has been an oligarchy at best from the very fucking beginning.
Our homie Josh Heir just posted that he got his very first Facebook deletion warning.
Oh,
Josh popped his cherry.
No, I gotta give him this one. Where is it? Damn it. Fucking computer's going too slow.
Welcome to the club. No, but I mean, my point is all of these people that are freaking out about these militias in particular make me chuckle because I'm like, that's literally supposed to be our security. Since we started, that was supposed to be our security. That was supposed to always have been our security and the way that we did things. We weren't supposed to have cops. We weren't supposed to have a standing military. We were supposed to have militias. I mean, shit, when the Civil War started, the Zoabs, right, with their ridiculous uniforms and stuff, and I know anybody who's watched Gods and Generals has seen the Zoabs, and they show up in a couple other Civil War movies and stuff. They were a civilian drill corps. Like, their job was to be a militia that then did parade stuff and performed and showed how maneuvers worked and stuff, and people would pay to come and watch them. And that was how they started. The whole Shores of Tripoli thing in the Marine Corps anthem is a load of horse shit because the Marines aren't the ones who did anything about the Tripoli pirates. Those are private fucking tiers with letters of marque that did something about the Tripoli pirates. Those are privately owned gunships. So, if you're freaking out right now about the idea of there being a bunch of armed people in the streets, remember, that was how we started.
Remember, cops are bad. We need police reform. Oh my God, there's armed people in the streets.
Yeah, there's armed civilians.
Won't the cops do something?
Yeah, exactly. It's just the most ridiculous. Well, we don't need police because we can protect ourselves. How dare you protect yourself?
Yeah.
What?
I want to be flexible enough to get my own head that far up my own ass. Seriously.
It is.
If you were that flexible, you would not be putting your head there.
That's true.
Yeah. You'd be going the other direction, let's be honest. We all know.
Fair enough. Wouldn't we all?
We'd all be doing it.
This is why nobody listens to our podcast.
Even the ladies.
The most professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the ladies, if they were that flexible.
If you're a lady and you are that flexible, hit me up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, by the way, look me up at Tinder. Or Bumble.
All right. In Philadelphia last night, protesters surrounded the police precinct after an officer shot and killed 27-year-old Walter Wallace Jr. Wallace had a history of mental illness and a knife, and when officers approached and opened fire, His mother begged them not to shoot. In the aftermath of the shooting, protesters have smashed windows and spray painted the police substation. Police say 30 officers have been hurt, and one who was hit by a pickup truck has been hospitalized for a broken leg. This is all happening during an election year, and we have a sect of the president's supporters who have vowed to show up at polling places armed. If you have a terrible, ominous feeling about all of this, you're not alone. Some on the right are talking about another civil war. Some experts who have studied sectarian violence in the United States and other countries think we're already in one.
Okay, I want to point out that a lot of the people clamoring about a second civil war are actually on the left. And I'm saying that because if they're...
Aren't they the ones out there yelling, resist, resist, resist?
Exactly. They're the ones out there that are showing up in front of the...
Oh.
Let's use Kenosha as an example. They're the ones showing up out there in front of the courthouse and yelling and screaming and making a big ruckus and then destroying private businesses instead of, the institutions that really are the ones causing them to be oppressed and all that stuff.
You know what I haven't seen lately since Biden, since the election and Biden probably was looking like he was winning, is a resist post from a leftist.
I actually have. I do have a couple of anarcho-syndicalist friends on Facebook. Very cool guys, both of them, that I would rather have as a neighbor than some ANCAPs. But they
anarcho-syndicalists.
They had both had like fuck Biden posts, like right after. Oh. There are people on the left that hate Biden and see Biden for what he really is. But
there are a lot of people on the left that hate Biden and see him for what he is. But I know a lot of people on the left that admitted openly that Biden was a worthless, racist piece of shit, but still went to the polls because he's not der Orange Führer.
Yeah, all right, patch.
But we gotta get orange.
Change your patch. What is it?
I did. I now have a flag that if you have the video.
Oh, Aloha Akbar.
You may
Aloha
recognize. Yes, yeah. We're not going to go into what flag it is because I think if we say what it is, then we'll get banned. But let's just say it's tropical. It's a tropical flag.
This is more me right now.
We have patches.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh, all right, let's get back in the jungle.
There is another way.
According to several experts I spoke with, a new civil conflict will look nothing like the first American Civil War. It's not likely that clear sides will be drawn up with massive armies of Americans marching toward each other. Others each. My brain is so tired today. According to several experts I spoke with, a new Civil War conflict would look nothing like the American Civil War. It's not likely that clear sides will be drawn up with massive armies of Americans marching towards each other as drones strike from above. An insurgency is far more likely. A period of sustained and distributed conflict where non-state actors carry out violence to achieve a political goal. Several said they believe.
Are they suggesting that a civil war would look like literally every other war for the past 40 years?
Last in Vietnamese rice farmer.
Yeah. I'm just pointing out,
Yeah.
With the exception, I will say, with the lone exception of the Falklands, we'll ignore the Falklands.
Yeah.
Other than that,
yes. Several said
Desert
they believe
Storm was more of a head-on collision.
Yeah.
That's true.
More so than
it was a more head-on F-15 versus their armor. Several
A-10s versus.
Several said they believe we're already in the early stages of one, a period before large-scale political violence the CIA defines as incipient insurgency. Quote, a conflict in the pre-insurgency stage is difficult to detect because most activities are underground and the insurgency has yet to make its presence felt through the use of violence. The CIA guide to the CIA guide to the analysis of insurgency says its definition of incipient insurgency phrase, Quote, moreover, actions conducted in the open can easily be dismissed as non-violent political activity. During the stage, the insurgent movement is beginning to organize, leadership is emerging, and the insurgents are establishing a grievance and a group identity, beginning to recruit, train members, stockpiling arms and supplies.
You know, I think it's funny that they talk about the incipient insurgency and yet seem completely like unaware that what so many of these platforms in particular are doing is making that incipient insurgency a bigger guarantee. Because if you're Facebook and you go, oh, well, I don't want these people who might be insurgents to be able to communicate on my platform, and you ban them, right? Then they migrate to encrypted platforms. They migrate to Reddit and talking honestly, they migrate to 4chan, they migrate to all these other platforms, all this decentralized stuff, and suddenly they become nigh impossible to truly track well and effectively. So all you're actually doing by banning these groups from Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and these other places is making certain that they feel further disenfranchised, that they feel further away from the idea that peaceful resolution to the conflict is possible, and guaranteeing that they are going to be next to impossible to truly track and monitor.
It also
you're playing into their hands.
It also removes them from mainstream American or mainstream society, mainstream culture, and pushes them to the fringe. And as we know, the fringe produces echo chambers. So now you're just in an echo chamber, and you're getting more and more radicalized by people that are also radicalized, and it's just this nasty little fucking blender.
But you were originally radicalized by the establishment.
By your reaction to the establishment.
I would say more by the establishment's reaction to your disapproval of their actions.
I can agree with that. Like, I would not be an anarchist if it wasn't for the government actions.
Right.
If we had a truly constitutional government, there'd be very little for me to be upset about, and I would not be an anarchist. I also feel like that if I had grown up anywhere besides California, besides the San Francisco Bay Area, if I had grown up, I don't know, in Nevada, in Reno or something, I don't know if I would be an anarchist, because the government there is a lot less and less oppressive.
Well, I mean, look at me. I grew up in rural Wisconsin for, I've lived here practically my entire life. And it took me until the disappointments of the Great Orange Fuhrer to finally, jump fence from libertarian to anarchist.
Oh, you silly people, and you're living in one place all the time.
I lived in one state. I didn't live in one place.
But I mean, even still in one state, I haven't even lived in one fucking country my entire life. All right, I haven't lived within 4,000 miles.
Aaron, go, bro.
Yeah, Shakira.
I have no idea what that means.
Means our day will come.
Oh, okay, deal. Back to the article. There are plenty of examples from around the world for what this might look like, and many civil wars today do not have soldiers marching on the battlefield. The early stages of the Syrian civil war was fought by paramilitary groups in neighborhoods that were funded by the fucking CIA. For 30 years in Ireland, insurgent groups policed the streets, disappeared people from their homes, assassinated political enemies, and bombed buildings. The quote,
I have no idea what they're talking about.
the quote Colombian conflict was an asymmetrical war that lasted 60 years and involved various guerrilla groups, most famously the FARC, fighting each other and the government, also funded by the CIA.
I say FARC was completely. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Go look up Ronald Reagan.
Iran-Contra,
the Contra affairs.
Yeah, I mean, are you like constantly? This is what we see, which is what makes the prospect of an American insurgency awful interesting from a purely a military historian standpoint. It's super weird. It's really interesting because if it develops, if that happens, it's going to be a thing that the world has literally never actually seen before.
Oh, and it will be the balkanization of the United States.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's so weird because we've kind of seen something similar in Chechnya a little bit to a certain extent. We saw something kind of similar.
We could see a little bit of the Ukrainian peninsula here also, where technically you're part of Ukraine, but you identify with Russia and you want to join Russia, but other people don't want to join Russia because you're technically part of Ukraine, and then there's that internal conflict, and then one moves in with the other. And so, yeah. But you can see that same sort of mentality here, like with California. Okay, for example, California, right? California was it's 2-1 went for Biden during the election, but per landmass, California had almost as many red counties as it did blue. Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you could see some serious infighting here in California, versus counties, but some counties wanting to leave and join Jefferson, but then we got counties down south that turned red, and they're not, up north in the California, Oregon area. So
it's one of those weird things where we've never actually seen a major industrial Western power really descend into civil war and into an insurgency in the modern era. In the Victorian era, if you will, right? You had the American Civil War, and yes, you did see that. You had a few other civil wars, but we haven't truly seen, with the lone exception of Spain. But even Spain, I don't know that you can call it similar, because Spain had, where Franco had his support from Hitler, and the Republicans had their support from the Soviets. So, or the Republicans were Frank. In any case, they had their support from the Soviets and from Hitler and the Nazis, and it was really used as a test bed for their stuff. So that's the closest thing that I've been able to find, because I've done some research on it, and that's the closest I can find to what we might see.
It also what makes this really interesting from a military perspective is the introduction of asymmetrical warfare, right? The U.S. military, as we all know, sucks fighting an asymmetrical war, right?
And they know it.
They know that's the best. That's the word. That's the best part. When you're fighting, asymmetrical warfare, you're fighting small unit cells, hit and evade, quick movements,
and they'll show up anywhere.
And the U.S. military doesn't act like that.
Yeah, there's a brilliant book out called the Limits of the American Military, and it's the severe limitations of the modern American military complex in response to asymmetric warfare, something of that general effect. It's available on Amazon. It's $30. You should pick it up if you're interested. But he brings up a really cool point in it where he says, that the American military is aware of its failings and yet inexplicably refuses to adapt any of its tactics to small-scale war. And instead, it favors the existing experienced units with asymmetric warfare, the Rangers, the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs. And that's what it chooses to deploy instead of MARSOC, too. And that's what it uses instead of deploying Big Army, essentially rendering Big Army useless, and yet they continue to dump the majority of their budget into Big Army.
Yeah. But one of the other really... one of the other parts that makes asymmetrical warfare really hard to defeat is its ability to hide within civilian society, right?
Talk to a Vietnam veteran sometime about that.
If you're fighting insurgents and the insurgents are in inner city Detroit or inner city Denver or something like that, you're not gonna fucking launch drone strikes in the middle of fucking Denver. Right, you're not going to blow up a building if you're trying to defeat an asymmetrical unit, you're not going to blow up a building in the middle of Denver if you're the army, if you're the government, if you're trying to maintain the hearts and minds of the civilian population.
It depends on if you care.
No, I see where Jason's going with this, only because they would have to try to maintain the hearts and minds of their own population, not some foreign population.
Right, but
where
that gets interesting is because there are counties that went red, there are areas that are so distinctly Trump, which are likely to, should things descend, right? That are very likely to turn into strongholds.
A couple of counties here in California went 70% for Trump.
I saw that.
And there's a distinct possibility that it should, things progress that direction, that they will turn into rebel strongholds, right? Where they basically operate with impunity. If they're fighting, right? If Biden is in charge and he's fighting, especially if Harris is in charge and she's fighting, a group that is within those areas that are already very much strongholds, already very much against him, he will not care. She will not care. They don't care what they destroy. Because at that point, there's already clamoring on the left for dragging Trump supporters into the streets to publicly execute.
AOC had a tweet about some sort of registration for Trump supporters or something like that. So they can get revenge on them or something like that. I didn't see the exact tweet, but
yeah, but I mean that's already happening. It. Well, yeah, because it sounds kind of Nazi. But
what?
Yeah, right. But that's probably what you're going to see. I mean, historically, that's kind of one of those things that we see where, even within the Spanish Civil War, again, the closest analog that I have that I can pull from, looking at the Spanish Civil War, Guernica was very, very definitely, the city of Guernica was not a pro-Franco city, right? It also wasn't particularly rebelling, but it was an anti-Franco city as it was. It also happened to be laid out in a very good grid-like structure. And so the Nazis had no problem using it as a test bed for their bombing campaign.
Yeah.
They had no problem destroying it. It was also because it was laid out in a perfect grid pattern, so it made observing the destruction of the bombs really, really easy. And they were those kinds of assholes, but because Nazis, but they were already. Franco didn't have a problem with it already because, well, they're anti-me anyway, so I don't care.
Yeah. All right.
So we'll see that same kind of thing happen, I think.
All right, yeah. Let me get these two paragraphs in, then we'll finish it up. It says, during the years of leading Italy, right-wing terrorists colluded with political assassinated leftist political leaders. These and other conflicts are overwhelmingly what civil war looks like now. Armed groups with various objectives vying for territory and cultural and political influences, often violently. According to several experts, if America goes to war with itself, it won't look like it did in 1860. It'll look more like Belfast in 1972 or Aleppo in 2011, but those analogies still fall short. It's hard to find direct historical analogies for what is happening in the United States right now. The kind of political violence and civil strife isn't new, but there's a lot of factors that make America unique. The United States is a large country spread out across millions of square miles. Social media is fueling the conflict, and our populace is heavily armed. People, it is fair to say, are scared.
Well, I mean, saying that people are heavily armed and that makes us unique is disingenuous, because it's not like Syria had strict gun control. All right, that's most of the Middle East does not have strict gun control. If I go and I live in a Middle Eastern country in general, and I want to go buy a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, I can go do that.
Well, yeah, like when the U.S. military controlled Iraq, it was part of the agreement that each Iraqi family could have like an automatic AK-47 or something like that, right?
Oh yeah, we dealt with that constantly. Like we had to constantly remind people, like new guys that were coming in country in both Afghanistan and Iraq, like, no, it's just because somebody's carrying an AK-47 doesn't mean shit. Everybody carries an AK-47 here. That's just what happens.
Yep.
So same with RPGs. Weirdly, like random people who are going to get groceries will have an RPG just in case shit pops off. Now I don't know what kind of shit you're expecting that you're carrying an RPG, but
all right, let me get this one more paragraph.
Common close quarters, door kicker type gun.
Let me get this one more paragraph. This is a quote from this guy, David Kilcullen. He's a member of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies.
Wow.
Yeah. Studied insurgencies, blah, 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 like America's future, quote. The worst atrocities come from fear, not hate, because people think they're good and they can justify incredible atrocities, justify incredible, atrocious violence to themselves on the basis that it is defensive. You need a belief that some other group is encroaching on your territory, and then you need to have lost confidence in the ability of the state to act as an impartial and neutral protector. We're already losing that confidence because of COVID.
Oh, for God's sake. He was so right. He was so right.
So right.
He just
up to that point, yeah. Quote, we are in a state of civil war whenever, in more than one geographic location in the United States, it becomes commonplace for multiple non-state armed groups to fight each other with deadly force. When that is an occurrence that is common in more than one location, that country is in a civil war.
Yeah, and that's, and he brings up an interesting point, ignoring his COVID thing and the fact that he might in fact be mentally.
He was so good up to that one word.
He was so close, and then his Down syndrome showed through. Not to insult anybody with Down syndrome, they're generally wonderful, sweet people, and I adore them. But anyway, he just kind of yeah, and but he does bring up a really good point though with that last little bit. A really good point in that. What's the quote again? It's the last.
Lost confidence in the ability of the state to act as an impartial and neutral protector.
Yeah, the idea that you can no longer defer to someone else for your protection, for your conflict resolution, for those things. That is a hallmark. But no, that actually wasn't the part that I was talking. I was actually talking about the last bit where he talks about that it's hard to define.
That was somebody else. That was Robert Evans.
That might have been.
Yeah, it says we are in a state of civil war whenever in one or more geographical location in the United States, it becomes commonplace for multiple non-state armed groups to fight each other with deadly force. When it is at that, or when that is an occurrence, it is common in more than one location in the country. That's a civil war.
See, and I find that as a historian, and that's where things get really weird for me right now, because on the one hand, I'm living this chunk of history here. And so from the inside, it's really hard to see and analyze. And on the other hand, I look at it through the lens of history in a way that I think most people don't. And looking at it, I'm like, God, when do you define a civil war? It's one of those things where you're like, okay, well, when it happens, right? When you're looking through history, where you can be like, okay, this is definitely civil war now.
There's no tea to throw into the harbor on this one, though.
Yeah, I mean, well, even that wasn't the beginning of the revolution.
No,
not really. No. That was
just
an
started before that.
Yeah. Well, did it though? Did it, or did it start after that? Where exactly would you draw the line in the American Revolution?
I would say that the sentiment leading up to the Civil War was definitely at a fever pitch even before the tea went into the harbor.
Uh-huh. The tea into the harbor was reactionary to what was already happening.
See, what I'm saying is most people will say, well, the beginning of the Revolutionary War, that was Lexington and Concord, right? That's the beginning of the Civil War.
That was the first shots fired.
Yeah, officially. The first shots fired of the American Civil War is far, far murkier. where do you draw that line? Is it when the Union units are attacked in Baltimore? Is it when the shots are fired at Fort Sumter? Is it when John Brown takes the Harper's Ferry Armory? Where do you draw this line where it officially begins? It's super murky. And I think that what I love about this article is that it points out, like, it's so murky, but historically, when we look back at this, we're going to say, nope, we're already there.
You know what? We're at time, but I think we should pick this one up and come back to this one on the next episode. Because this is a good discussion. I mean, we're at time. We're at 2 hours right now, which is our limit. But
I was going to say, personally, I don't care if we keep going, but
I have stuff to do.
It would have to be, it's going to have to be another night. But yeah, no, I think we are in it, and I think that from a historical perspective, we are going to look back at this and be like, wow, yeah, we were already there, and we didn't even realize it at the time. We didn't even see it.
I personally think we've been in it for a long time, for a couple of years now. I think it's not. I don't think it's a civil war. I think it's a culture war. And
I think it really started in earnest back right around Ferguson time.
Before that,
maybe a little bit thereafter. I mean, in earnest, there's been a lot of cultural and political dissent in the country since way before that. But as far as actual fever pitch, as far as actual conflict, actual blows and shots being exchanged, I would point to Ferguson as probably the first engagement.
All right, final thoughts. That's my point, though.
Final thoughts. That's exactly my point. Where do you draw that line? Because I don't see a line there. And look at how far back, when you look at the 1860s, how far back you go when you start learning about the American Civil War to really explain where it starts. You basically go all the way back into the late 1700s in order to explain the 1860s. It's a very long, drawn-out thing, and I think we are approaching 1860 is essentially where we're at right now, rapidly approaching it. But just a promo, beard stuff, man. You want a cool beard like I have that is soft and supple and smells wonderful and it's shiny and it's healthy and it's great, you're going to use the beardstruggle.com's products. And if you use the code InkedAnarchist15, all run together, InkedAnarchist15, when you go to checkout, you will save yourself 15% on the products from thebeardstruggle.com. Link will be in the description.
Check out Andrew's it doesn't exist anymore.
They killed it. They killed it. It's gone.
Make a Telegram channel.
I might do that, or a Discord. I might do a Discord.
Oh, Discord will delete you too.
Well, that's possible too. Yeah, that's true.
Oh, make a Telegram channel.
Telegram, I suppose. Yeah.
Yep. Oh. On that note, buy Derica's book. Beginner's Guide to Critical Thinking Skills Workbook, something. I don't know.
Think for yourself.
Think for yourself. There you go.
Thinking. Yes, I have it sitting behind me. Also, for everybody asking and sending suggestions for the videos, the first suggestion I got was on Hadrian's Wall. I'm going to start working on that soon. Unfortunately, my computer being killed by Bill Gates is causing problems right now, and I would be much further along in the process.
His computer was vaccinated.
It was inadvertently, and it died, but I will get it fixed, and once it's back up and running, I will work on that video first. I'm going to do that. I really want to do, there's a couple other videos that now I definitely want to do, but Hadrian's Wall is going to be the very, very first one, because I get to talk about my ancestors that way. So I'm excited.
On that note, anything else, Christopher?
I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing either. So on that note, this has been episode 113, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Later.